Good evening and welcome to our Wednesday night session sponsored by the Nora Foundation. I'm Hanny Freiwat and I don't think we have any announcements. I know Dr. Eriko started the intermediate Aramaic class this past week. So for the students who are with him, I think it's going to be going for a few more weeks. Other than that, I'll go ahead and open with the Lord's Prayer in the Aramaic language, the way Jesus spoke it over 2,000 years ago. I've been studying quite a bit about Aramaic, and it's I'm constantly surprised by how much of my own dialect is based on Aramaic. It's a very high percentage of the Palestinian dialect, as well as the Lebanese and the Syrian dialects, still carry a lot of the Aramaic language to this day. So it's a very living language in many ways. And I know that the Chaldeans and the Assyrians as well, they still use it in liturgy and in their homes. So if you take a second and take yourself back a couple of thousand years in a land of Galilee where Jesus was with his disciples and apostles, his followers. And when they asked him, how do we pray, teacher? He said, pray something like this. Awund washmaya nafqaddash shmach, ta'thay malkutach, nehwi suyanach ikannad washmaya abbar'a, حاولان لحمة سنكانا يومنا واشوق لان حوبين إكنا داب حنان شوق لحيوين ولا تعلن لنسيونا إلا بصا من بيشة مثول دي لاخي ملكوثة حي لو تشبحتا العالم عالمين آمين. And as we know that the final few words were added later that he did not, Jesus did not say them. But it was also a Jewish tradition, a spiritual tradition to glorify God. And that was the core message that we received from Jesus is not glorifying God in the way that, you just sit in a corner and repeat the name of God, but the God of Jesus was a very practical parent figure who wanted us all to have happiness, to get along, to be joyful, to be aware of our humanity. And that's something that is kind of squeezing my heart constantly these days. That the more I see the conflicts in the world in our time, I keep saying I can't believe it's 2026, and we are repeating patterns that have been in the human history for so long, and we know we have proven evidence throughout our history that these methods never solve problems. They just either change the format of them, they prolong them in a different way. Violence, ethnic cleansing, religious wars, economic wars. It's just maddening how many people are dying in 2026. Plus, and people who are dying because of these wars who are not really a part of the wars, like people who are being impacted by disease because our focus collectively as humanity is on other things instead of caring for one another and using our advancements to help one another in medicine and these outbreaks that we're seeing with Ebola and other diseases, including some of them here in the West and the United States. So why are we in this turmoil? Why can't we? And we have the formulas. The thing is, we have history to tell us all this, and then we have the formulas to come out of these things, and we just keep delegating the power to people who are interested in prolonging the same political system that Jesus observed in his time, the a colonial mindset, an occupier mindset, marginalizing people, creating conflict between religious groups, ethnic groups. And we keep falling, collectively, we keep falling for the same lies, for the same um, uh, message that tells us that we are separate for whatever reason. When you look at it on a map, we're seeing people within the same map region conflicting with one another. And until something happens across the border, then we all unite to go against the people across the border, as if the border was made by God. And we know that none of those borders, there are some natural borders that separated people historically, but all those were conquered many times by Alexander the Great, by the new machinery that we have, that we can fly a plane from one continent and bomb a town in a different continent in no time whatsoever. So we're using a lot of the technology to, prove that this world is very small. We're all in it together, and yet we continue to create this chaos. And I say we because we are all responsible. I don't think one of the things that I struggle with personally is, how do I go on vacation while this is going on? How do I enjoy my limited number of spins around the sun, in a way, and yet contribute and be active and a part of all of humanity, fulfill my role. And I think my ministry is a big part of that. But beyond my ministry, beyond speaking, and teaching from the Jesus Aramaic perspective, it's something that I try to take into my community. I try to take anywhere and everywhere I go, and in my travels, I try to embody the teachings and the prayer that I just shared with you. Jesus was a very powerful teacher, yet his approach, as difficult as it is to live by, is very simple. And once you grasp that, living becomes simple. But when you see the hard stuff, just like he did, I mean, his Beatitudes, what we call the Beatitudes, if you look at all the people he mentions here, and these are large groups of people that represent the majority of humanity, the people who are mourning, the peacemakers, they're everywhere. Peacemakers are everywhere. They're not just there are 3 or 4 of them in the world. We know them because we interact with them, and whenever there is a conflict, anywhere from a little fight in the schoolyard to people who are trying to broker peace amongst warring nations, nations who have conflict or fearing each other. They're everywhere, and for every name that we see on TV, there are probably thousands behind the scene who are orchestrating how to operate a peace deal. But the world lives, today's economy, today's world is built to capitalize on conflict, not to get rid of conflict. We still have not bought in collectively. I'm seeing change. And we see these bright lights pop up in different places. But so in what I want to talk about today, it's just a very simple example of Jesus's way of dealing with conflict. But the trick of Jesus in this episode is that he was facing what was the law of God, the law of Moses, and he was put in a dilemma that he had to navigate out of. When I'm talking about the episode in John, I know about 3, 4 weeks ago, when one of the, not the last time I spoke, but a couple of times before that, and I talked about Jesus as a champion of women's rights in his time and in our time. I said I might get to the story in John. So today I'm going to talk about it, and I want you to kind of put yourself in his shoes. Here is an authoritative figure, somebody who knows the law. He understands the Torah, and he understands the community that he's in. And now we see him, he went to the Mount of Olives, so an area in Jerusalem, close to where he actually ended up being crucified. And in the morning, he came again to the temple, and all the people were coming to him, and he sat down and taught them. So he was just, doing his thing. Then the scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who was caught in adultery. So she's been condemned. She was caught in the act of adultery. Now, an interesting note for those of you who have the Lamza translation of the Bible, Dr. Lamza tells us that this story was not in the original Peshitta, but made it to the Aramaic Peshitta later. So this, again, this is the power of the scribes. This is the power, in this case, the followers of Jesus, the Christian scribes, who found value in this story to bring it to, align it with the teachings of Jesus. I like it because it does not conflict with Jesus, and it brings that different perspective. So she was caught in adultery, and they made her to stand in the midst. They said to him, "Teacher." Remember, I spoke about this multiple times. The Pharisees and the scribes were constantly trying to trick Jesus to make a mistake, to go to test his teachings. And as I said, because his teachings are so simple, it's easy to find that truth when you're reading the Bible, what is Jesus and what is not. And this kind of falls into that. It's like, okay, so now we're going to try to trick you again. So they said to him, "This woman was caught openly in the act of adultery. Now, in the law of Moses," so they tell him, "it is commanded that women such as these should be stoned. But what do you say? What do you think about this?" So, you want to go against Moses? You're in the temple. You're in Jerusalem. You're in the headquarters of the Jewish religion. And what do you think? What are your thoughts on this? So you can imagine Jesus. They said this to tempt him, that they might have a cause to accuse him. While Jesus was bent down, he was writing on the ground. See, this is the humanity of Jesus. He did what any one of us would do. I would be like, pulling on my beard. If he had a little beard, he probably pulled on it as well. And then he started doodling on the ground. So they said, so he bent down, he was writing on the ground. So he's like, okay, I'm thinking now, I'm stuck. The law of Moses says, kill her, black and white, adultery equals death. There's no, and that's the reason I'm bringing this is because we have a lot of situations in life where we are pre-programmed to react. And the law of Moses, that, as I said, black and white, committed, you have the right number of witnesses, etc. That there is nothing else you can do about it. Now, if you're a part of religion, not the message of Jesus specifically, you notice that religion constantly came up with alternatives to make it kind of easier for people to belong to the religion and not necessarily stick with all of Jesus's teachings. And that really bothers me because they pick other pieces like the law of Moses and the commandments and so forth, because they're black and white and they can, and a lot of them break them, but they have methods to overcome that error or the sin. In this case, Jesus was put on the spot and he had to stick to, his message of the kingdom, love one another. forgive. And if he would have said any of those things, like he did on the Sermon on the Mount or anywhere else, he would have been accused of, breaking the law of Moses or going against it. Lost his credibility. And when they were through questioning him, he straightened himself up and said to them, so this is the thinking, this is the doodling. He who is among you without sin, zero sin, let him first throw a stone at her. Imagine that in any court of law today. You the jury, you the lawyer, you the public defendant, you in the crowd. If the judge said that to any crowd today, if you are without any errors, you have not made any mistakes, stay in the court, everybody else go. Or the other way around. And again, he bent down and he wrote until he went back to doodling. So, Jesus, when he said, say yes, yes, and no, no, kind of limit your vocabulary to the topic and your response to be very clear, this is in line with that teaching. If he would have stood on a box and started, giving another sermon and there, he probably would have gotten himself wrapped around a pole and got stoned as well, along with her, or got accused of breaking the laws of Moses. Instead, he went just right back down. He gave him one sentence. Any one of you without sin, toss a rock. And he went back doodling. So, and now he's standing near her and when they heard it, they left one by one, beginning with the elders, and the woman was left alone in the midst. So here she is standing, basically facing death, and the crowd. Imagine the crowd, and this was Galilee. This was, sand it's Jerusalem, and Mount of Olives. This is not a city scene, not a court of law. And they start dropping the rocks, the ones who picked up a rock, and they started walking away one by one. And here's the woman by herself, standing in what was in the middle, now alone. When Jesus straightened himself up, he said to the woman, where are they? So he wasn't even making eye contact. Eye contact is risky in these situations. You have a mob with rocks ready. I mean, they're pumped up. They're ready. You have to develop like this level of anger and self-righteousness to be able to kill a person with a rock. You don't. So you can see, that the 2-3 people who grabbed that woman, and the witnesses who saw what she was doing, and they knew she was married. That's why she's breaking the law. So she must have been married, but otherwise she couldn't be called an adulterer. So she was sleeping with a man who's not her husband. They grabbed her and they dragged her. And as they, that's happening, that more people come. What's going on? It's like, oh, we caught an adulteress. Grab a rock and follow us. We're going to stone her to death. That's the mob mentality that Jesus was facing. It wasn't this, he happened to have 5-6 guys with a rock and a woman. This was a very, very dangerous situation that Jesus got pulled out of teaching and said, hey, come, you're a rabbi, you're a teacher, come tell us this. This is how intense that situation was. And when he straightened himself up and said to the woman, where are they? Did no man condemn you? So he's even asking her. It's like, none of them? Because they could have. If one of them felt, I am good enough, I'm going to toss a rock, the rocks would have started flying. So, but he disarmed them by putting the mirror in front of their face instead of seeing this anger towards the woman and the righteousness of the Mosaic law to empower them. And you got Pharisees and scribes with them. So these are religious men who have the authority to execute the law. And so think about situations that we have today where we are in situations of war and peace, of ceasefire. And imagine if you had the mindset of Jesus, of disarming, of creating peace, of giving people a chance to correct their behavior versus doing what the macho right thing to do, bomb them back to the Middle Ages, or destroy everything they care about, or that's what we have today. This is the same mob mindset that Jesus is dealing with. It's the same mob mindset that we tend to build to initiate war, to initiate even like a hostile takeover of a business. We start talking about the other company as like, they shouldn't be around. We should take care of that. They're threatening our position in the market. Blah 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 blah. And then you get the momentum, the board with you, the voters with you, and so forth, until you can execute a hostile takeover, and then start laying people off and start taking over their business, without necessarily thinking about, okay, how can we coexist? How can we collaborate? What if they do more of this? They're good at it. We're good at, and we are good at this. We'll do more of that. So dialogue, and asking these questions is core to figuring out how to get out of difficult situations. And Jesus asking that question was the only thing that he could have done to save that woman's life. So now, more importantly, now he's with the adulterous woman, and she's scared of him because she's a holy cow, this guy has the authority to answer the Pharisees and the scribes and the mob. I was a dead woman a minute ago, and now he has that power because he had that power. He's a religious teacher. Did no man condemn you? She said, no man, Lord. Then Jesus said immediately, neither do I condemn you. So when we talk about the justice of God versus the justice of man, he's demonstrating how the Father judges. The Allah that he talks about in the Lord's Prayer, the all-inclusive God that he talks about on the Sermon of the Mount, the one whose sun shines on the good and the wicked. There is no judgment in that. I can't call it deity because it's a system. It's a universal system that he's bringing here. So he's saying, neither do I condemn you. Now, my advice to you, go away, and from henceforth, do not sin again. Because he knew as soon as he turned away, she's broke. Being, having to commit adultery is now, she's known in the community, and that's probably her way of making a living. So, but he's telling, it's like they're out to get you, and next time I'm not going to be able to save you again because I'm a traveling minister. And so this is really the way I wanted to bring conflict and conflict resolution to our world today, using this, and then using Jesus. As I said, the reason this woman is there, as I said, she's married. Where is her husband? We don't. The book of John doesn't talk about a husband, coming running and accusing her of adultery. The husband is absent. Because most likely he threw her out without giving her divorce papers. And that's a big key. So I'm tying this back to what I was talking about a few weeks ago. The community did not stand by her. The community was, that mob mindset. Even if there are good people in the community, they might have been in the back of the crowd and watched this take place, but nobody stepped in front to do it. And, Jesus was pulled into this situation. So when you are in that situation, or when you're observing the type of conflict that has other people threatened, and I've been in these situations at different levels of making that quick decision. Do I get engaged? or do I walk away? Do I go to the back and watch it unfold, or do I put myself on the line? And we have this power today sometimes to do it in, by voting, by talking to people ahead of time, or doing retrospectives and so forth. That you can contribute and remove the conflict, and most importantly, preserve life. That Jesus, life is so precious. And I watch today's news. One of our soldiers, and I feel for him and for his family, an American soldier who was killed in Iraq. We immediately learned about where he was from, his age, and they haven't given the name, at least the last time I read the news, because they have to inform families and so forth. But yet, you flip the next news story or click on the next picture in your news feed, and you'll see 12 members of the same family killed in Gaza. We bombed 12 military locations or strategic locations in Iran. Iran tossed a bunch of things on a ship or on a and we tend to bundle people like they don't have names, they don't have an age, they don't have a town they belong to. We don't care about their next of kin. And often, more often than not, we show the picture of the bodies all over the place. That is not right. That's not something that we should accept. That should not be something that we should, get numb to. And we have to live. So that, as I opened with saying, I struggle with this because I know that I only have so many breath, and I'm not because I live by Jesus. I don't know if I have my next breath. So I want to enjoy life. I want to enjoy the Jesus way of living. And yet, when I see this stuff, it takes away from that joy. And it puts me in a position where I want to say more. I want to do more. I want to see less of this conflict. I want to see a peaceful world. I want to see a world without this type of suffering. And I see it in other people. I see it in people who I interact with regularly. We're hearing in here that the very tragic situations that we're seeing with chasing legal or illegal aliens. Or I was a legal alien. I came here as an immigrant. I went through the paper process. I waited in line. I got investigated. I got sworn in. And I earned my citizenship in the United States. But prior to that, for 25 years, I was a refugee. I had a refugee travel document. Everywhere I lived, I had to every year roughly to go and get approved to stay in the country where I'm living, where my parents are making their living. I had to get a stamp that said I'm okay to exist. I was always nervous as a traveler because I needed visas. So we create these stupid systems that dehumanize people and anger people. And I was very angry as a young man. I felt everybody first. My heritage was taken away from me. My country was taken away from me before I was born. And then everybody around me was kicking and punching me every time I walked by because I didn't have a country to back me. And so I saw the world in a specific way. And now that I follow Jesus, I'm not afraid of anybody. Okay, I was afraid of Allah, and that fear created a lot of my anger and a lot of me wanting to lash back and speak badly about people, speak badly about situations. I hope that what you're getting from me now is that we have to work together, and we have some elements amongst us that need to be coached. They need to be maybe replaced from powerful positions, and put in almost like in therapy, because they are doing things that we did in World War II. We did before World War II. We did it during the Crusaders' time. We did it during the Islamic expansion times. And so I'm not excluding anybody from like saying these guys did it better than those guys. When you're carrying a sword, and this is a core teaching of Jesus, you are in violation of your humanity. and your violation, you're immediate, as soon as you carry a sword, no matter what you do with it, okay, that's a crime against humanity. And until we learn how to let go of our weapons and figure out another way to solve our problems and not create problems to start with, there is plenty for all of us. I just feel like I'm burning from the inside, and I had to talk about this, um, and to share with you, and then to share with you that we can get out of it. And that's my message of hope, is I know that we have the system to get out of it. And with that, if you have any questions, please drop them into the Q&A window. If not, we can have an extra half an hour back and go enjoy our half day of summer. I have Rebecca. Rebecca, we're doing a session while I'm waiting to see if anybody's going to ask questions. We have a session tomorrow. Sorry, next week, next Thursday.
Next Thursday, we
Yes.
kick off our podcast, Let There Be Light. It's going to air on the Godly Woman Network on YouTube, but it will be shared all over the Nuda social media as well. But if you come onto the Godly Woman Network on YouTube next Thursday at, did we say 4:30? I don't have it written down in front of me. 4:30 in the afternoon on Thursday. Join us. It'll be a really powerful conversation, allowing the Eastern perspective of the Bible to speak. We hear the teachings of Jesus and the messages that come through the what we call the Holy Bible. We hear it through what has been really framed by the Roman Catholic movement and the Protestant movement. But those movements succeeded the original teachings of Yeshua Messiah. There was an Eastern man in an Eastern place, and he said Eastern words to Eastern people, and they meant certain things. And so the three of us, as we gather once a month, the last Thursday of every month, on the Godly Woman Network, we're going to come to you live with this podcast entitled Let There Be Light, so that we can give a chance for the East, the voice of the East, to speak on behalf of the East. We're privileged to have Rabbi Eriko with us, who has spent almost his entire 90 years of life in this category of work. He spent the last 10 years of Rabbi Lemsa, his life with him, absorbing these teachings as close to a biblical scribe with a master teacher experience that you could probably get in the modern world. And so we have that he has preserved, retained, grown, and built. I don't know that we can understand what the gift it is to have Reverend Hanny with us. He is literally from that part of the world now. That is what an ancient patriarch of the East looks like, sounds like, feels like. And so he's going to give us an authentic take. And then, of course, I'm the daughter of the immigrant and refugees. I'm the one who carries the essence and the voice of it for today. And I have firsthand the stories and the inheritance that my father and my mother and my grandparents and great grandparents and all the aunties and uncles who made the migration, the ones who broke the seal, you could say, left areas where our bloodlines had been continuously for 4,000 or 5,000 years, picking
Yeah.
up and moving, picking up and moving.
Yeah.
So there's that earns its place in the world, as I talk to other people who have their own perspective, their own belief system, and we all get to choose. But that's my message regularly is, can the East just speak for itself, please? Can the East just speak for itself? Can you just give us a chance to take away the interpretation and the telephone game of language and all of the scholars who know better about our culture than we do? Can we just have a chance? So each month, we're going to take our own opportunity and give ourselves a chance to let the voice of the East speak on these matters and let you, the audience, ask questions, challenge the conversation. It's okay. I don't think there's any conversation that Reverend Hanny or Rabbi Errico or I are afraid to take on and address, welcome, not like a challenge, but like we welcome the conversation that you might bring and have. So that's happening next week. And then, of course, August 16th at 2 p.m. is Let There Be Light. I'll be starting a new 8-week series. The book is included. You can check out the Nura page to register. And I think that's all I've got. Reverend Hanny,
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to our session. It's been a while. It's been almost a year and a half since I've
Yeah,
done the podcast. So we're looking forward
yes.
to doing that monthly. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
And
Thank you.
thank you for the wonderful, and I don't have any questions. I just have wonderful supporting comments. We are, I'm not Palestinian anymore. I'm human. And I want everybody to be human with me. And I want the people who do humanize us to get off the seat and give us a chance to actually grow a new system, a system based on loving one another instead of this stupid passport and flag and religion and IDs and so forth. It's maddening what we can, and we're hurting ourselves. I see countries suffering. It's like, oh, we want to get rid of the immigrants, but not the doctors and teachers. We rely on them too much. It's like, what do you want to do? You want to do the trash collecting now? You want to take on that task is where your heart is. You've applied for that job and didn't get it. Your kid went to school to become the trash collector. But that's what our parents did. That's what the immigrants did. And I'm speaking to a generation of sons and daughters of most of us. I know there are some native people, and I have some lovely, lovely native friends here. But most of us come from, they're third generation Irish. So all of us are mainly mutts. But we speak now about the East because the religion that is being used today by the West is an Eastern religion, and it's being misused, misinterpreted, and mistranslated. And I hate that. I hate it with passion because it's a message of love that's been absolutely stolen away from the East. Let's bring it back because it gives the West and the East a chance to move forward and create a better world. So God bless you all. I hope to see you next Thursday. And I believe Dr. Eric will be speaking next week. Have a lovely evening. Thank you. I appreciate your support. We appreciate your donations as well. That's how we keep all these things going. So take care and until next time.